Hello, this is Mrs. Sanchez here. Today we're going to be talking about writing system of equation. This is a little bit different than what we just did with equations in slope-intercept form. You'll see that still we have two conditions that are happening, but they're a little bit different to set up. Here we go. So Heather has $11.20 in a jar that contains only nickels and dime. There are 140 coins in the jar. How many nickels and dimes are in the jar? So before we move on, let's think about let's break this problem a little bit more. Nickels are worth, what do you guys think? So these are worth 5 cents, but remember, how do we write that? That's 0.05, not 0.5. 0.5 is 50 cents. And dimes are worth 10 cents. Okay, so now let's think about what you are comparing. So we're talking about nickels and dimes in terms of how many you have and also in terms of how much money you have. This is how we talked about quantity. This is condition quantity versus value. Value represents how much money you have. And this is how many items you have. Okay, so let's talk about quantity. So what makes up this jar? The jar is made up, you have a total of 140 coins. What makes up the 140 coins? So you have, it is made up of nickels and dimes. So think about that. So it makes up 140 coins. So you have nickels. So that should be an L. Nickels and dimes. Now think about that. What makes this up? Nickels. So you have a jar full of, in this case, 5 cents coins, and then you have 10 cents and a total of 140. So that's kind of like your jar here. So here we go to the value. So we know the total value. See, there's always a total here. Total value is $11.20. We know that it's made of nickels. So the nickels are worth 0.05, and dimes are worth 10 cents, which is 0.010. So 0.05 per nickel, 0.10 per dime. So now let's take that, and so we do not know. So when we define the variable, think about what we don't know. So we don't know let, so let's start with this. Let x equal the number. So here's the number of dimes, and let y equal the number of, let's change this up. This is the numbers of nickels, so we can start with nickels, and this is dimes. Okay, that's better. Okay, so when we write the system of equation, we use the condition that we identify. So now if I go back to this, so I go back to quantity. So I want to know, I'm going to write an equation in terms of quantity. So this is how many coins. So what makes up? So there's a total. So think about the total goes here. What makes up the 140? Well, it's made up of what? What do you guys think? So nickels, but it's not the value of nickel, but how many. So we know that the number of nickels is X because we don't know how many you have. X plus Y equals 140. Okay, that's your first condition. If you think about tying this up here, this goes here to that point. And now we're going to use the second equation is in terms of money. So we know we have $11.20. That's how much we have. So what makes up the $11? If you think about a jar, you're not counting how many coins you have, but the value of it. But you need to know how many you have in order to know how much money you have. So we know you have X amount, but these are worth 5 cents. So that's 0.05x. So that's for the number of nickels. And this is 0.01y. That represents how much dime you have in the value of dime. So there are your two conditions. You can see one is about quantity versus the other one is about how much money you have. So now, if you think about the different ways we have solved, we solved using elimination, we solved using substitution and graphing. And you can see both of the equations are in standard form. So the best thing to do here is to go with elimination. So now, remember, we need to make sure we have the x's to be, or the y to be the same. So we can multiply, we're gonna multiply the top equation by negative 10, so we can eliminate, so we're gonna decide to eliminate these y's, you see? So I'm gonna multiply this equation by 0.010. So, and actually I wanna do negative because one of them is already positive. So we want to do this negative, and you can think about, well, we're going to keep this the same, so that's times 1. So here we go. So the multiplication goes like this. So let's just use this. So we're going to distribute. So your new equations are going to look like this. So this is negative 0.01x. There you go. Then this is going to be, let's do minus here, minus 0.01y, and this is negative 14. You copy the same equation on the bottom because it's just times 1. Anything times 1 is going to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to use the red color to show that it didn't change because we didn't multiply it by, we just multiply by 1. And when you multiply something by 1, it just stays exactly the same. And this you have 11.20. And now you see you created your opposites here. Opposite coefficient, that's what you wanted. See, opposite coefficient, remember, coefficient. I'm missing an E here. Sorry, coefficient. So now we're going to add the equation. Here's my plus for adding, and then just start doing these. So negative 0.10 plus, that's negative 0.05x. There's your 0. You can add the 0 if you like. And then you got 14 minus 11, minus 11.2. That's negative because there's the 14 is bigger. And then I'm going to divide by 0.05 on both sides. And this becomes, what does that become? Think about that. Put that in the calculator, divided by 0.05. So x equals 56. Be careful with these negatives because it doesn't make sense to have negative, in this case, dime. So these are, nickels. 56 nickels. And now we need to figure out how many dimes. Well, we go back to the original equation, the easiest one, and you can see, so we got 56 nickels, and we need to figure out how many dimes. So we can use the easier equation, which is x plus y equals 140. And some of you can just do this in your head. 56 plus y is 140, and then minus 56 on both sides. And that gives you put that in the calculator, just do it in your head. That gives you 84 dimes. So we always want to state this in a sentence when we solve this problem. So we know that, and you can check it. And if you go back to the equation and check it, then you see that it works. So this is, you have 56 nickels and 84 dimes. If you add those, that should give you 140. And then if you figure out, if you do the check, let's say if I'm doing the check here, so 56 plus 84, that's 140, that's one check. But let's just think about kind of checking it for how much money we have. So for the money, we know that this is 0.05. Be careful where you substitute. That's 56 for X. And then we got 10 cents each dimes are worth, and that has to be equal to $11.20. So multiply 56 times 0.05. That gives you 2.8, and this is 8.4. Add those together, it should give you $11.20, which indeed it does. So you can see we did it correctly. So this answer right here is the correct answer. So make sure you add those up and make sure it equals 140 coins. So just to recap, when you do system of equations, you want to identify the conditions, and usually there are two. Sometimes it's about quantity, sometimes it's about value. And then you try to define your variable based on what you're missing, and usually that's here. You see, it tells you how many. This is basically the defining how many. So you want the nickels, the number of nickels, and the number of dimes. And then you know that there's 140 here. What makes up the 140? That's your number of nickels and the number of dimes. Then you have another total, which usually it's something about money or something else, $11.20. We know that the $11.20 are made up of the worth of the nickels, in this case the nickels, and then the worth of the dime. And then you can see the equation you decide to use. We're going to use elimination here because they were both in standard form. Remember, we want to eliminate one of the variables, so we want to make them opposite coefficient to each other. So we did that here. Be careful with your negative, be careful with your decimals, because sometimes these problems have some nice decimals. And then you solve, and then you find the other variable, just like what we've been doing before. So nothing different, everything the same. So this is 56 nickels, 84 dimes, and you want to make sure you check it to make sure you did the problem correctly. So that's why the check is so important, to see if you solved it correctly. Oh, I hope you enjoy watching, and